Okay, so good to see you back for that little pause that refreshes. All I needed was a cup of coffee. That's not true. Hey, folks, what an exciting night we're having, and you have heard guest after guest, and we've got more coming. Right now, we have one of the foremost experts on education, and we're going to hear all kind of good stuff. And let me just go ahead and bring Dr. Peg Luksik into our studio. And Dr. Luksik, it's been a while since we've spoken, and you have been warning everybody and anybody about the dangers of Common Core. And, you know, until we had, and it passed in the Senate, and now it's showing up in all these, and are we at a point now where we can say, I told you so?
Yeah, we kind of are. Unfortunately, there are, literally hundreds of thousands of children who are caught in that mess. So there's no joy in I told you so, because we told you children would be harmed, and they are. There's no joy in that. This was not an unknown conclusion. Experts were warning the people involved in Common Core even before the standards were finally adopted. When the early childhood experts, for example, got a look at some of the standards for the youngest children, over 500 experts in early childhood education signed a statement telling the folks writing the Common Core standards that these were developmentally inappropriate, that they were not in keeping with the research on how young children learned or on what they should learn, and that it would cause significant damage to children. The statements of those 500 people, all of whom were recognized experts, were ignored. Now, when I say they were recognized experts, I've had folks say, well, how do you know? Well, the 500 included the 3 past presidents of the National Association for the Education of Young Children, one of whom is a gentleman named Dr. David Elkind. If any of your listeners studied child development in college, he was one of the folks that they studied, because he's one of the people who wrote some of the foremost research in the development of young children and how they learn. So it was not a surprise. It was not unknown. The folks that wrote these standards and then force-fed them, in fact, had ample information to say that these were going to cause damage. They just did it anyway.
Let me ask you a question, Dr. Luksik. When you say you got 500 people, now did you go out and stack the deck with people you knew were going to say things a certain way, and did they all get together in a smoke-filled room and lock the door and get together and in a sinister manner plan this doom and gloom outlook, or was this more or less their own spontaneous and organic observations?
It was spontaneous and organic. Groups like the National Association for the Education of Young Children saw the standards and asked some of their leading members to take a look at them and give their opinion. In some cases, they were university professors. They were psychology professors. They were pediatricians. They were child development experts. So what happened was that as people began to see draft standards, those who actually did understand early childhood education, and let me just add that of the 29 writers, none of them were early childhood educators. Exactly 0 of those folks were early childhood educators. So as the folks who did know got a look at them, they began to testify and to share information. So it really was a very organic, and then people talking to each other saying, well, gee, can you take a look at these? Am I seeing these correctly? What do you think? So it was the kind of thing that grew rather spontaneously out of the legitimate concern of folks who have been involved in this field for many, many years.
No stacking the deck, no collusion, no leadership saying, let's all get on the same page here and make sure we have the same message. It was really just each individual or group
and nobody like Bill
expressing
Gates
themselves.
Nobody like Bill Gates spending billions of dollars to force feed it. Yeah.
All right. Well, here's the way I see it, Dr. Luksik. We fought and fought hard, and I commend every warrior and every soldier in that fight. But the Senate finally passed it, and for a long time I thought there's no play that we can call. But it seems to me that something is happening, and I'm encouraged. It looks to me like, even though the federal government has said, yeah, we're going full bore with this, it's imploding under its own weight, and state by state, we're starting to see states saying, No thanks.
What we are starting to see across the country is teachers, parents, taxpayers who are looking at this and saying, no, we're going to fight it. States are, what we're seeing across from the establishment in the states is a rebranding, saying, well, we're going to rename it, which is always the first step toward repeal. The people who are pushing it, if you can get them to start backing away from their own labeling, that's a good sign. And we're at that step right now, when they have to back away from their own labeling. And the pressure continues to build. One of the, I work in many of the states. The state of New York, their Department of Education actually put together a graph that mapped the way that the test results showed achievement, and they put that against the poverty levels, the socioeconomic levels of every one of the districts. And what they found was that it matched.
Highly correlated,
so,
linear correlation.
Highly correlated. So this is a test. This is a system that measures poverty and then punishes children for being poor. And as many of our elected officials who actually do happen to care about their constituents are looking at that kind of data, they're beginning to say, wait, that's definitely not what we intended. That's not how you told us this was going to work, and we need to look again. And so as that kind of information becomes available, and many of us are collecting it and sharing it and teaching it, what we're seeing is an increasing number of elected officials at the state level and at some few at the federal level beginning to say, we need to seriously look at this, and we need to do more than rebrand. We need to reorganize. And I think that's extremely hopeful.
It's good to hear good news, because the news has not been good for so long and there's been no news. There are two things I want to cover, and we're going to have to wrap it up. But what do you think about the recent rhetoric that kind of says, well, Common Core is already dead? What are you so mad about? The states don't have to do anything. It's completely voluntary. You can edit it any way you want to. It sounds like Common Core is just an ethereal idea out there that there's no teeth in it. And what are people like us so upset about?
Yeah, I do hear that. And when I hear that, I have to chuckle, because the same people who use that language are the very folks in the U.S. Department of Education who have the absolute right to approve or disapprove of any state's educational plan. So the people in charge who have truly absolute right to say yes or no, who are then saying, well, no, that doesn't exist, is absolutely ridiculous. Because it's a little like a 2-year-old who stands in the middle of the floor, closes their own eyes, and then says, you can't see me.
Let me turn to something, Dr. Luksik. You go around the country speaking on this topic. How's business?
I do. Booming, sadly. But I'm losing a lot of weight.
And sleep.
Because I'm sleep. But the good news is an increasing number of folks are interested, concerned, and willing to step up and do something about it. And I think that is absolutely wonderful. The last piece of encouragement that I want to give your listeners, when I talk to folks and they say, what can we do? I always say by encouraging them to protect their own children, which means at the moment, you need to pull your children out of those public schools. Don't give up on the public schools. Fight for them, but protect your own children from the disaster of what's happening. And last year, in this country, the homeschool population in America grew, not became, but grew by 667,000 children. What does that say? It says parents are beginning in increasing numbers to step up to the plate and say, no, I actually am the primary educator, and I am going to take responsibility to exercise my authority. That is an incredibly positive development for every educational establishment in America. And I am in I can't begin to tell you how encouraged I am.
I'm
by
doing
the number
math
of
in my
parents
head.
Who are,
okay,
it's the population of Seattle.
Well, and I'm thinking the population of the United States is 330 million, and that's all men, women, and children. So to put this all in perspective, folks, that is a massive, massive exit. Yes,
it is. It's enormous, but it is a strong indicator, because every parent who is getting involved isn't choosing homeschooling. So, many are choosing for a variety of reasons to remain in the public school, but they are now paying attention and they are pushing back and they are becoming active and senior partners in the education, in directing the education of their own children. And that is one of the most positive developments that we have seen in this country for quite a long time.
Dr. Luksik, it is wonderful to not only hear from you, but to hear so many encouraging points. And tell us about your upcoming schedule of speaking engagements in the near future, and where you're going to be, what you're going to be doing, and who you're going to be talking to.
Well, tomorrow I'm going to be at the prayer breakfast in your state capitol in Montgomery, so I'll be there tomorrow morning. And then speaking to a variety, I spent today speaking to a number of legislators here in the state, all of whom were gracious and concerned. Tomorrow I will be meeting with more. We're doing a press conference on, I believe, Thursday. And then Friday I head out to Georgia, where I'm speaking to folks in Georgia. And then next week I will actually be in the state of Delaware doing this. I'll be working with some citizen groups and then legislators in the state of Delaware. So, I have, in the next not even 10 days, I'll be in 3 different states, just to give your listeners an idea of how fast this is moving.
Okay. Well, Godspeed. And Dr. Luksik, thank you for sharing your time with us tonight. I wish we had more time, but you know what? I bet we'll get to do this again. And
I bet we will.
You just keep the fires burning, and you keep swinging that axe, because chips are beginning to fly, and that's great news.
I agree. God bless you. Thank you so much. Have a great evening.